Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tales of the Pod podcast. My name's Michaela, I'm your host.
I'm your co-host, Nick. How you doing, guys?
How are you doing this week, Nick?
Good. We got a nice episode on paranormal horror movies today. So
yeah, this is your favorite genre of horror, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's I just always loved them. It's like creepy when you can't see what's like bothering you or chasing you or whatever, So it's just something spooky, about the like spirits and
like
life after death, the unknown and stuff you can't see. It's always spooky.
Yeah, I mean this is a genre that consistently does well. Like whenever a supernatural movie or a paranormal movie comes out, usually theaters are filled with people.
Mm-hmm.
People, I don't think you're the first. People love this kind of stuff. They like hearing about it. They like seeing it.
I know. I mean, well, you got all the shows too, like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
That actually, because there's a lot of people that really believe in this stuff. And I am one of them. I do believe there's things out there that science can't explain, and
these movies kind of
they kind of pick up onto it.
Yeah, and I feel like they make it scarier. Make it scarier than it is. Maybe it wouldn't have such a scary connotation.
Oh yeah, they definitely I think embellish a lot of them, especially like the ones based on true stories. There's a lot of embellishment, going on, especially with the Conjuring films. So
yeah, the ones we're going to touch on today kind of have a mixture of a lot of things. Like there's paranormal, there's supernatural. A lot of them are like demon, exorcist themed, I'd say.
Yeah.
Which in most movies, it seems to go hand in hand with a lot of paranormal. A lot of it's like a demonic presence kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's in horror. I think, and that's what it's going to be. It's not going to be a nice ghost,
No, there's no Casper anymore.
Yeah, there's no Casper. There's no Patrick Swayze. So,
although I do miss Casper, I love Casper.
That's a classic.
All right, so we just kind of broke it down to some of our favorite paranormal horror movies. We're going to give a rundown on all of them, why we like them, all that good stuff. But as far as the podcast goes, give us some feedback. We've been working hard on lighting, cameras, microphones. Let us know if you can hear us any better. I know I mumble sometimes. So just let us know how that's working. We're hoping to maybe get some guests on soon, which will be exciting.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I think getting some other people's opinions too.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, anyways, back to the topic. Nick, do you want to go first?
Sure. All right, so I picked 2022's Incantation. Now,
that's a good movie.
I believe this it came out on Netflix. I mean, it didn't only come out, but it was on Netflix. It's a Taiwanese, it's like a found footage supernatural horror movie. Just a little rundown for people who have not seen it. It's basically this woman in Taiwan, and her 6-year-old daughter start experiencing some weird stuff, and it's kind of weird because it's almost like a cry for help kind of movie, because the woman is asking you, basically as soon as the film starts, she's frantic in front of a camera and she's holds up this insignia and asks you to do this incantation, which is kind of like this weird Tibetan throat humming music. I don't really know what to call it, but she's asking you to do that to help save her daughter, who has had a curse put on her. And then it basically goes in to tell you that 6 years before her daughter was born, her and her friends went to this remote, kind of like this cult village out somewhere in the, I think it's called the Yuan province of China. And they are doing a YouTube documentary on this cult, and they worship this god called Mother Buddha. And basically, shit kind of they let him come in, they let him film, but they won't let him go near this sacred cave that they do their sacrifices at, basically. And then they're kind of what do you mean sacrifices? And then as the day goes on, it's human sacrifices to this god, and they say do not go in the tunnel. They end up going in the tunnel. They see the god, and it's basically the god kills them all, basically, because it's not a god, loving god. It's a very malevolent deity, as one could say. But I'm not going to spoil the ending because there's a twist in the movie and everything like that. I'm not going to spoil the ending. It's a good ending, but I don't want to spoil it because I feel like a lot of people should go see this movie because it is a great, foreign horror film.
Yeah, it is a foreign horror film, but it's dubbed over on Netflix. It's dubbed over in English.
Mm-hmm.
And it's You know, you get used to it after a little bit with the lips not lining up with what they're saying. You get used to it a little bit into watching it.
Oh yeah, I mean you get that with any movie, I think.
It's an interesting movie for sure. And yeah, at the end there is kind of a plot twist that leaves you feeling pretty uneasy. I'd say is the way to describe it. Like I felt very uneasy afterwards.
Yeah, and in the paranormal aspect of it, and the supernatural, basically like it's flashing back to like when they're visiting that cult and then to present day, like what's going on with like the daughter. The daughter starts like pointing at the ceiling saying she sees, I forget the word she uses, but she's like saying there's like basically a bad thing on the ceiling, but you don't see anything, and then the daughter's like acting really weird and you think she's getting possessed essentially.
So you can't have kids.
Yeah, and it's too, you know, there's kids being super creepy, you know, saying stuff and, you know, being really creepy and weird and,
Typical in a scary movie, the kids just freaking out, doing weird shit.
Yeah, and it's basically just like a cut, like bouncing back and forth until like the very end of the movie where you get the plot twist and everything, and it's a good plot twist. You're like, oh, did not see that coming.
It is, because it almost involves you in it. Like, it involves the audience.
Oh, that definitely involves. Well, like I said in the beginning with that whole insignia, and then, like, she's, like, asking you, like, looking into the camera and, like, talking to you, essentially. Yeah, the fourth wall,
like, when they actually look in the camera and ask.
Yes.
I mean, it is found footage, but usually they still don't look in the camera like that.
Yeah, and it's, like, basically she's calling out to you, the viewer, to, like, help save her daughter. And you kind of feel like you have to, you know?
Yeah. It's a high-stress movie, because then they kind of flip back and forth to when they go to the call in the cave, and you're finally, like, waiting to see what's in this cave, and you're finally trying to see, like, what's about this call, what's the deal, why is she being possessed?
Yeah.
And it's a build-up, like, it's a high-tension movie.
Yeah, I think it's pretty long, too. I think the runtime
2 hours.
Yeah, just under 2 hours, 111 minutes. So it's right around there. So it's a good movie though.
I think it's still on Netflix if anybody wants to check it out.
Yes, yeah, it is, and definitely a good one for people that like foreign horror. I'm a huge fan of foreign horror, and especially like the Asian. I think there's something about Asian horror that's like so much more creepier. They do such a better job, like with the supernatural aspect, I think, than any other culture does.
Well, they have so much like history and culture that they have like all these different like stories and tales, like like, different like I don't want to say spirits, demons,
deities,
curses. Like they have so much more history, and they actually believe in a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff they do believe in. So I think that makes it even creepier too.
And I think if you believe in something hard enough, you can manifest it.
Right.
So years and years and years of families believing things like this. It's crazy to see it come into play.
Yeah, so definitely go give that one a watch if you have not seen it.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure.
So what do you got for yours, Michaela?
I picked probably, arguably, the best paranormal movie of all time.
Oh, I could argue. What is it?
I said it's arguable, but I'd say it's pretty good. I picked The Conjuring, which I think what's so good about The Conjuring is even people who maybe weren't into scary movies for a while, they were still going to the theaters to see this because they heard how good it was. And it brought so many more people to the genre, I feel. You know, they heard how scary it was, how well done it was. It's not even just like the spooky aspects of it, like it's just a well done film in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So essentially it's about Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're two paranormal hunters, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with them by now. They investigated a number of high-profile paranormal cases, and the first Conjuring kind of spun off the whole Conjuring universe.
Yes.
And now there's a bunch of movies about all the different cases they've investigated throughout the years, but the first one is essentially the Perron family. And, you know, typical story, they move to a new house. They have, I think, 5 daughters.
Yes. And
the house is haunted. It has some kind of entity in it. And it's all because of the mom that lived there got possessed by Bathsheba, the demon. Yeah. And she tried to kill her son in the same house.
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't a demon though. Wasn't it a witch that lived there before? Like,
you're right. It was a witch, and she sold her soul to Satan.
Yes, that's right.
And her name was Bathsheba, and she tried to kill her son as like a sacrifice.
Yes.
So there's all these eerie scenes of like the tree out front where she tried to hang her son. The scenes you get of Bathsheba are very unsettling.
The one that she's on top of the armoire in the bedroom, and she just like jumps onto the mom, but then like disappears. That was so freaky. That like gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. That was so scary.
Basically, this entity, takes possession of the house, and she had said, Bathsheba, anybody who dares to take my land, I will basically seek revenge on.
Mm-hmm.
And they were wondering. Typical scary movie, they were wondering why they got this house for so cheap. They have 5 girls, so they move in, everybody gets their own bedroom, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of starts to manifest in the mom. She wakes up with, like, bruises, she starts to feel really sick, and Bathsheba takes over the mom.
Right.
And they seek out the help of Ed and Lorraine Warren to try to get this entity out of their house.
Yeah.
But all the scenes in this movie, there's so many jump scares. It's so well done. Like, there's so much tension building. The music.
The music is great.
The introduction of Ed and Lorraine Warren is just iconic. Like, just to learn about them and to see in the beginning of the film the whole introduction written out about how they were actual ghost hunters. This is supposedly a true story.
It's based, on true events.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're, like, I remember I'll never forget the first time watching that, and I wish I could watch it again, like, experience it again for the first time, because it was so exciting.
Oh, yeah, no,
and
I agree.
Oh my god, this is based on a true story, like, this actually happened, if you believe that kind of stuff. But yeah,
it is interesting, it's cool how they made it, like, kind of just like a whole series, basically, about
whole
them,
world.
About Ed and Lorraine and how they helped families and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of controversy with them, too, at the same time, but I genuinely feel like they were trying to help people that had problems that, they couldn't go anywhere else with,
And I was going to touch on the second Conjuring, which is the Enfield poltergeist case, which takes place in the UK.
Yeah,
which is probably their second most controversial case next to Amityville.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty controversial. There's a lot of pictures and videos and audio from this case that are highly analyzed. They think that the little girl wasn't actually possessed, but besides the point, just basically on the horror genre, great movie. First and second Conjuring are great.
Mm-hmm.
The Crooked Man in the second movie.
Yeah, and I like too because I think James Wan in the second one, he actually kind of made I don't know, like an Easter egg to the whole thing, like with the Enfield, that it wasn't like real, because like even in the movie, like they saw the little girl like smashing all the plates, like acting out, like saying it wasn't her. I don't know if you remember that part, but they basically, and then they're kind of like, she's really not possessed, but it turns out she really was. I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen the second one. That's their introduction to the nun. So
it's hard watching it because you're seeing this little girl do all these things, and she's, anybody can say the devil told me to do it or whatever, which is another one of the movies that they come out with. But anybody can say they were possessed or anything, and you're trying to figure out if she actually is possessed or if it's just maybe a cry for help or cry for attention. But the craziest part, I mean, there's a lot of crazy parts in that movie, like, scary scenes, jump scares.
Mm-hmm.
But the craziest part is they had this chair in their house that the previous owner had died in, and he was haunting the house. He was the entity.
Yeah.
And he had died in this chair. Well, the next owners that took over, the Enfield poltergeist case family, they kept that chair, and the mom died in it.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, why would you keep that chair? And they touch on it at the end of the movie. They're like, Mrs. So-and-so literally kept this chair and died in it the same as the previous owner.
Oh, wow. That's creepy. I would definitely get rid of the chair.
I burn it. Burn that shit. Are you kidding me?
I did not know that.
Oh my god.
No kidding.
But yeah, I think The Conjuring, I say it's like arguably the best or one of the best, just because, like I said, the whole universe it's spun off to. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with The Nun. The Nun is super popular.
Yeah, and that's like I said in the second one, that's where the nun makes that scene where she's painting the picture and you see the figures come around the portrait. Oh my god, I was like, no.
Oh my god.
It's such a. And it's so well shot too. That's why I love the Conjuring movies. James Wan does an awesome job. I don't know if he was involved in the later ones, but I'm pretty sure the first and second he was involved with. He
was involved in the first and second. I think he did La Llorona. He did Annabelle, which, if you guys aren't familiar, if it wasn't for this movie, we wouldn't have Annabelle, which that was a big cultural phenomenon as well. Everybody talks about Annabelle.
Yeah.
That was a huge thing. And she makes an appearance in the first Conjuring. They actually start out talking about her.
With that case, because that came before this one.
That came before, and then that's how they explained what a conjuring is, about how spirits can use objects to conjure themselves, essentially. Like, they can put their spirits inside of an object.
Yeah, what is that called? It's, I forget the name of it. There's a word for it.
And then it happens in the second movie as well, because they have, like, that Jack-in-the-Box thing, but it's like the the Crooked Man.
Yeah.
It's not quite a Jack in the Box, but it's like this figure that walks and moves.
Yes, yeah.
And he kind of manifests himself in that.
Yeah, it's like a conduit. They use him as a conduit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, great movies. I'm sure everybody's seen them, but I could watch these movies at least a few times a year.
Yeah, they're always good. They don't get old.
No. I remember seeing it in theaters. I think some of the spin-offs, granted, in the Conjuring universe, are better than others for sure.
Yeah. Like, I didn't really care for The Nun, the actual movie about the Nun.
Or the La Llorona.
Yeah,
I didn't
really
think Annabelle was... All the Annabelle spin-offs weren't that good.
Yeah, the only one I liked was, like, the whole history, like, how Annabelle came to be. I thought that was, like, the only good one.
But yeah, still a great movie. Definitely recommend if you haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Definitely in for a good scare.
I know, right? All right, so I got another foreign horror film. It's The Medium. It came out in 2021, and this one is a Thai South Korean. It's the same kind of mockumentary found footage as Incantation was. But this one's like definitely, I think, a lot more creepy and a lot more violent. So basically, there's this medium. She's like a shaman lady in Thailand. Her name is Nim, and she claims to be possessed by the spirit of Baba Yan, which is a local goddess that these people worship. And she's like a benevolent god, like, you know, you do good and she'll like reward you and stuff like that. And a lot of people go and see this Nim to like, you know, basically fortune tell, stuff like that, you know, not in the whole, you know, sense that that word is used, but essentially that. Then she ends up going back home to see her family somewhere in Thailand, and she starts noticing that her niece is acting like very strange. Her niece's name is Mink, and she starts having like weird like pains in her stomach, bleeding and stuff like that. Just acting really strange, and she kind of like does a complete like 180 of how she used to be, like, or at least what she remembers. She's like out partying all the time, being promiscuous, like, you know, prostituting herself, like completely acting completely different. So she kind of like is trying to get involved with her, and then basically Mink keeps sorry, the names are kind of confusing in these movies. So Mink basically gets to the point where she's like, you know, very sick, acting very weird. She's like
just deteriorating.
Yeah, essentially just like kind of deteriorating, and she's like eating like animals and stuff like that. Like, and you kind of think like, because there's nothing really spooky going on, you think maybe she's like having a psychotic break, but then it comes to like this thing that Baba Yan is punishing Mink because she was supposed to be the next in line to get transferred the spirit, but she didn't want anything to do with it. So essentially, this medium was supposed to give it to her daughter. She didn't have any kids, so Mink was the next in line to accept this shaman gift, and she doesn't want anything to do with it. So essentially, that's what she thinks is going on, is Baba Yan is basically trying to punish her for not accepting her into her life. And you kind of like, okay, that makes sense and everything, you know, that I could see that, but it's basically not that at all. And essentially it kind of almost turns into like this weird, I don't even know what to call it. It's paranormal, but it's super weird. Like this cult gets involved trying to do this ritual to send Baba Yan into Mink, but Mink's like already possessed by Baba Yan, and Baba Yan is not like a benevolent god at all. Yeah. She's like very, very violent, and you know, it's basically just like killing Mink, and then just like,
her soul.
Yeah, and she's killing, and Mink's like during this whole ritual, like some crazy shit happens, like the lights go out, Mink's like freaking like ripping these dudes' faces apart and like eating their innards, and then like everybody that she's doing that to starts turning into a zombie essentially, and like attacking the cameraman and everything. And the whole time, this Nim, the lady who said who had Baba Yan in her, she ends up dying like halfway through the movie. And so they go ahead and do this ritual without her. And then you come to find out that obviously, you know, Baba Yan was never in Nim, right. She was in Mink. So it's you got to kind of just watch it. It's kind of hard to follow. It's a long movie. It's about 2.5 hours long. But it's super good. There's a lot of good jump scares. Super creepy, like just, found footage, like they're running through these tall, like, reed things out in Taiwan, and like there's Mink standing there, and she's just like got this evil look in her eyes, and she starts stabbing her mother and stuff. And
yes, I remember that scene now.
Yeah, I can't remember if you've seen this movie
I
or
remember
not.
that now.
Yeah, but okay, it sounds like you did.
It sounded vague at first, but I remember that scene.
Yeah, it's a good film. Yeah, that's essentially it. I mean, there's a lot of good. It's shot really well too. And yeah, it's kind of disturbing in some senses because it's just kind of, you're like, what the hell's going on? Like you don't really get it, and some of the stuff that's happening, it's just like, what the fuck, So yeah, that's my number 2 here, The Medium. Definitely go check it out. I think it did pretty well. Oh yeah, I think these are like my only ones. I just like like I said, I love the Asian supernatural movies.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my next pick, I picked Insidious, which I know I said The Conjuring is might be the best paranormal horror movie, but my favorite, I would say, is Insidious, my personal favorite. If anybody hasn't seen Insidious, James Wan also directed that, which is crazy to me that he did Conjuring and Insidious, because those are 2 big blockbuster paranormal movies.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's pretty genius. That's good for him.
Yeah, he's definitely a great director or producer. I forget what he is, a director.
Yeah, he did.
He does both.
There was another one I found too on my list. I think he directs later as well. But yeah, he's done a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, Insidious came out in 2010. It's all about the Lambert family, and it's almost a different kind of paranormal because it's not like they move into a house and it's haunted or they're like built on an ancient burial site. Yeah. It's all about their younger son Dalton, who ends up going into a coma, and while he's in the coma, he goes into like this different realm or different universe where I would say like demons like bottom feeder demons live, I would say.
I would call it like purgatory. I don't think, because a lot of them aren't demons, they're just like souls that are trapped,
Yeah, but it gets, well, I'll touch on that in a second. So essentially he's in a coma, right, and he sinks into what they call the further. And they just think he's stuck in a coma, and they end up seeking out help and from Annalie, and she's like a spiritual guide, and she said that he's not in a coma at all, he's stuck in the further, and the more and more he sinks into this other universe, essentially, these souls want to take him, and they want his life.
Yeah.
So they're trying to take over his body to come to the real world, so that he's kind of just fighting for his life in the further.
Right.
And then it goes into a little bit of a plot twist. You find out that the dad in this movie, who's Patrick Wilson, he also played Ed Warren, so he's kind of a scream king, honestly. Yeah,
he kind of is. Yeah.
He's in a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, and I think he helped with like some of the later Insidious movies too.
He helped direct.
Yeah.
So you find out that Patrick Wilson, the dad, his name is Josh, had the same problem when he was younger. When he would go to sleep, he would sink into the further.
Yeah.
And there was one time where he sinks into the further to help, bring his son back, and this god-awful looking witch thing follows him back into real life and takes over his body, and if you know, you know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And they kind of dive into it more in the second movie, but essentially, this witch-looking demon thing that took over his body was born a man, but he was made to live as a woman and castrate himself by his mom.
Yeah.
And that's why he just looks so creepy. He's like,
oh yeah, oh I know.
And his face is all white, and he's like standing there holding a bouquet.
Yeah, it's like this Victorian black dress, and it's just like with the veil over. Yeah, it's super creepy. It's definitely like a thing in nightmares.
It's a thing in nightmares.
Not want to see.
And there's a lot. I love Insidious because there's a lot in this movie that are a part of nightmares. Like
oh god, yeah.
The lipstick face demon thing where he's like
the thing that's possessed the little kid or trying to get to the little kid. That one. You mean the Darth Maul looking guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like this red figure. He's got like really long fingernails, and he literally stand by Dalton when he's sleeping and try to grab him. Dalton draws him when he's sleeping. There's one scene. It's like it seems so simple, but it's so great. Is the dad's just sitting there at a table, just like this, like a dining room table, and the camera frame looks at the wife, and then it shoots back to the dad, and the demon's right there, and he just like slowly opens his mouth and starts to yell. Yeah, and it's just such a jump scare, such a good.
I know that is a good. Yeah, I know. It's literally just like a split second. It's just like right behind him, in the peripheral of like your eye.
Yes.
There's a lot of other good ones too. I mean,
there's a lot. I think it's the second one where like the demon's trying to get the baby in the the baby sleeping in the little like nursery.
That's the first one. That's when
is it
they're
the first
still in the
one?
original
And there's
house.
this like creature standing over the child. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Yeah, she like opens the door and she doesn't like you see it when she opens the door. She doesn't see it till she gets to the crib, and it's just like this thing standing in the corner. She's like, oh my god!
And it's trying to get the baby. And thank God the baby was crying as it was because she ran in there.
Yeah.
And I love this movie so much because it's unique, it's different, it's not your typical paranormal movie.
Yeah, because they even leave the house in the thing because they think it's like the house is haunted.
They do everything. They do everything right. They seek out paranormal investigator. Which I love Annalise and her team that she has with her, the two guys that she has with her.
Oh, yeah, they're funny. They're like comedic relief to the whole
thing.
That's
what I was going to say. They're a nice sense of comedic relief. They're almost like Ghost Adventure TV show, like Rejects.
Yeah, essentially. They're like just, they remind me of like Geek Squad.
Yes. Like Paranormal Geek Squad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is a great movie. It's my personal favorite. I could watch. I think the sequels of this movie are not the most recent one, but the first and second one. I think even the third are pretty good.
Yeah.
They're all equally well done, and they all have the same effect, same jump scares. Like I remember in the second one when they're in the further searching for that like witch-looking thing, and they're in that creepy house, and there's all these like dolls everywhere or like mannequins.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of mannequins and stuff. Yeah, that was super creepy too. I forgot about that.
Very eerie, very stressful.
Yeah.
I love Insidious, though. I think it's a great movie.
Oh, I think a lot of those Insidious movies, even the last one, I thought was. I mean, it wasn't the best, in my opinion. It was. So I guess it kind of tied everything together and gave it an end,
Yeah, but it's creepy because, like, if you believe in that kind of stuff, it could technically happen. Like, I mean, we don't understand enough about sleep to rule it out.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing I was going to mention too. Is like because he's astral projecting, which I mean. People claim I've never had it happen. I mean, I think maybe I have, but I don't know because you don't really remember it too well.
Right.
But a lot of people claim that you can do that with practice, like, leave your body while you're sleeping and travel and, fly and do all this crazy stuff.
And it's creepy because Dalton, like, draws a picture and it says, like, when I go to sleep, or when I dream, I watch myself sleep or something.
Yeah.
So basically he's, like, floating above his own body or watching himself sleep.
Yeah, and they kind of throw that in there because it is, like, it's kind of based on a real thing, it's not proven.
But it could be, though. We don't know enough about sleep.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what happens. You're not in somebody's mind when they're sleeping.
Like, who's to say when you're having a bad dream about, like, a monster, you're not just in the further.
Yeah, exactly. You're somewhere, in the further.
Yeah.
Different plane, plane of existence is real stuff. All right, so I got this is going to kind of be a long talk because it's the Hell House LLC.
Oh my God, I love Hell House.
There's 4 of them now, but it's basically all kind of a continuation of one thing. Essentially, it's
all like one story, but with different characters.
Yeah, it's like bringing different groups of people into the same place.
It's not necessarily anthology because it's the same story, but just
different people. Yeah, it's not exactly. It's not like an anthology, but it kind of is because it's like different.
The same plot happens, but it's different locations.
Well, different. It's not the same location. It's just different people doing it. Oh, the new one. Yeah, the new one's not. But, so basically, for all of you who have not seen it, just very briefly, I'm going to try to be as brief as I can because there is a lot to talk about in these 4 films. It's a found footage style paranormal horror movie. Stephen Cognetti and Joe Bandelli produced it, or directed and produced it. They do sound very Italian. So basically, it's these group of people from New York City. It takes place in 2009. They moved somewhere into upstate New York to this town called Abaddon. And for those of you who don't know, Abaddon is one of the 9 kings of hell, or princes of hell. I don't know what they're called, but he's a demon, very powerful demon. So it's kind of funny they put that name to a town, and then the place where they set up this. So they move up there to set up their scare. What do they call
haunted house?
Haunted house, but they're called something else. What are they called? What was that movie that Eli Roth did? Haunts. Yes, that's it. So they're haunts, and so they move up there because they can't make it in New York City anymore. So they're trying to find this other place to set up their haunt, and they find this abandoned hotel called the Abaddon Hotel. And it's been abandoned since like the 80s, I think, or 80s or early 90s. So it's pretty like run down and everything. It's like perfect for a haunted house because it's already, you don't really got to do a lot to it. You put some blood and, mannequins around the place and strobe lights. You got a haunted house. But so they get there, and it's kind of like, everything's going good. They're having fun. They're getting ready for, they're preparing the haunted house. But then slowly, like, weird stuff starts happening. They find clowns in the basement, which is really, right then and there, I'd be like, no, we're not doing this. Why is there these clowns in the basement?
And if anybody, I know a lot of people are scared of clowns. These are pretty creepy looking clowns. One of them has like black tears or blood almost coming out of his eyes. And the clowns start kind of like moving on their own. Like the statues start moving. So they all just kind of think they're messing with each other. Like, hey, did you move that to mess with me?
Right, exactly. So they start noticing like weird little things like that like happening, and then eventually it turns into like pure on chaos. So one guy ends up getting like I think possessed, but you don't find that out until the very end because he kind of just like disappears. They think he got mad and left, and then he like right before opening night he comes back, but he's like super weird. They find him in the basement actually, like 2 days before opening night. He's just like hanging out in the basement. In the complete darkness, just sitting there, and he's like, oh, like, you can tell there's something wrong with them, but they're like, no, it's opening night's in 2 days, we gotta go. And so opening night comes, it's a huge success, there's lines of people for it, and again, this is all found footage, so there's like jumps between like the guys that are setting up for the haunted house and then like fans that are walking through it, and basically something happens in the basement. You never really get a good look at it, but essentially through the walk of the haunted house, you're supposed to end in the basement, and then you come out the storm doors, and then that's the end of the haunted house, basically. So you walk through, you see all the scary stuff. So there's a line of people, and there's people filming it, and you never really get to see what happens, but once somebody gets to the bottom of the basement stairs, there's like this portal in the wall has opened up, and there's these hooded, like cloaked monsters with daggers. They're running around and they're killing everybody. They're just stabbing and killing everybody. And you don't actually get a good look at what this portal looks like or anything like that. You just see like these robed figures coming around stabbing and killing everybody. And then essentially, that ends the movie right there.
Yeah. And they're all trying to like walk back up the same walkway, so they're all pushing each other down to get out. It's very messy and scary.
Yeah, and then it jumps back to like the footage that the people that of the crew that was setting up for the haunted house, they're all like dying. Two of the guys end up getting hung in the attic, and then another guy gets stabbed by one of the demon things, and then essentially everybody that dies in this house is now dies in this hotel in this haunted house is now trapped there. So that brings me to the second one. So the second one, basically, it's on the at the same hotel, the Abaddon Hotel, but it's about this film crew now has the rights to it, or not the rights. They're trying to figure out what the heck happened that night at that haunted house where the cops were called because there was huge police presence. People, there's all this footage of like these robed figures stabbing. A lot of people don't think it's paranormal. A lot of people like something creepy happened. There was always, something weird about that hotel. And that's where you also find out that, yes, back in the 80s, the owner was part of this satanic cult that basically wanted to bring hell on earth, And you find out through that Abaddon is actually a location to one of the 7 portals of hell. And Abaddon the demon, he is the guardian over the gate, basically. You've seen it in a couple movies. You probably heard the Abandon All Hope, you who enter here, Dante's Inferno, essentially.
That's in As Above, So Below.
Yeah, that famous line, that's basically a line from Abaddon the demon. So essentially the second one's just this film crew now is trying to figure out what is going on. They end up breaking into the hotel. Same kind of thing happens. They just, the movie's kind of starting off slow. There's a lot of, it's kind of like a news report, so there's a lot of like jumping back and forth between like their footage, news footage, stories from people on the internet that were there that night.
It kind of reminds me of anybody's seen Grave Encounters, which I think might have been a little more popular. It's kind of like Grave Encounters, I think.
It kind of is like that, essentially.
It goes from like interviewing people in the town, being like, what do you think happened, to like news anchors to actually found footage of what's happening currently or whenever they were there.
Right.
So that's definitely what it reminds me. I don't know which one came first, or if they came around the same time, but they remind me a lot of each other.
I think Grave Encounters came out first.
Did it?
Yeah, that was like 2012.
I think Hell House is better, but they just remind me of each other.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy Hell House better. So that's essentially the third one. The second one. The third one, it's actually kind of funny because this guy, Russell Wynn, And so all these movies are tied together. So if you watch them, you'll start to understand, like, there's certain names are mentioned in the first one that appear in the third one, and vice versa. There's names in the second one that are mentioned that come to light in the fourth one. So you have to kind of watch all these to get a good understanding of it. So the third one, this guy, Russell Wynn, he's like a millionaire. He wants to reopen the haunted house at the hotel. So he's like a millionaire. So he gets like this huge production company there. There's a lot more people involved on it. And he reopens this house. Same thing happens again. The portal opens, except this time, this Russell guy, supposedly because he had a near-death experience, ends up fighting the guy, Richard Tully is the owner's name, that ran the hotel that had the satanic cult. He's been long dead, and so his ghost is basically the one that's controlling what's happening in the hotel. So they end up having like a battle, and he ends up not killing, but winning, I guess, against this Richard Tully guy. And or Andrew Tully, that's his name, and the hotel burns to the ground. So that's basically the end of the Abaddon Hotel. But now in the fourth installment, this one just recently came out last year.
Shudder only.
Shudder has it, and I think Amazon would have it because I think it's an affiliate of Shudder. So Shudder's an affiliate of Amazon, so you can watch it there, and that basically explains the whole coming of the Abaddon Hotel and the clowns. And I'm not going to spoil that one because I'm not going to tell you a lot about that one because I think a lot of people can go find and watch this one too. But essentially, that gives you like a lot of backstory of what happened. You with the first and second Hell House movies, explaining the founding of the Abaddon Hotel, the Andrew Tully guy, what the hotel was like back in the 80s. It's just really good. It's a great 4 movies to watch, like on a spooky night. And they're creepy too. It's not like your typical found footage where you think it's kind of corny. I mean,
it's not cheesy at all. Like no one's getting like pulled into the air and like thrown around.
Yeah,
it's very well done.
Yeah, Stephen Cognetti did a really good job at directing all 4 of these movies. Really. Yeah, I mean it's creepy, and there's like. Too, if you in the movies, they'll do we saw this and this footage, if you watch it back, you see this, and that's so you're going to want to rewind the film to go see if it really is standing in the corner. You just don't see it because it's not mentioned yet. It's super good. I'm probably just going in circles talking about it. It's a lot to talk about.
It's hard when it's a franchise because there's a lot to go into.
Exactly.
And I'll say watching these movies, the first time I watched them, I always thought they were just fun movies. I didn't think that there was any underlying meaning or underlying thread of a story that they were all going to tie together. I thought it was all just going to be, maybe not like a cash grab, in a bad way, but they just kept doing the same story because it worked kind of thing.
Right.
I had no idea until the fourth one that it was going to be this whole long story, basically explaining all of it, and it made it that much better. It made the franchise that much better for me.
Yeah, it's super good. It's just, I mean, it's cool how they looped it all together. Like I said, if you watch the first one, and then you get finally to the third one, you're like, wait a minute, that name, that was mentioned back in the first one. That's right. Or vice versa. There was that point in there where that guy said that person's name.
It reminds me of Saw. There's all these little clues.
Yeah, there's kind of Easter eggs in them. It's one of my favorite film trilogies, I guess. Not trilogies, but, series, I guess.
And you're right, with the... when you watch it the first time, you'll be watching it and you're watching the main character, and then you watch the movie a second time maybe, and you're watching it and you don't even realize there's something standing in the corner.
Well, that's what I mean.
Because you're so focused on the character.
Yeah, and then even at the end of the movie, they'll be going through the footage, and the news. I remember in the second one, it's just we caught this when we were filming outside the Abaddon Hotel, and it's oh yeah, wait, and we rewind to that, and then it's there was something standing,
And how scary to record first person, and then you look back and you're like, oh, there was something standing there.
Yeah, there's something standing next to me. It's super well done. It's definitely you have to go watch these movies.
I recommend those movies to a lot of people. I really like Hell House. It sounds cheesy, even just the name Hell House. It sounds like it'd be a cheesy movie, but I really recommend it.
I know, when I first watched it, I was like, this is going to be not that great, and I was like, this is really good. And I'm like, oh, there's a second one. Oh, there's a third one. Oh, sweet. Now there's a fourth one. That's awesome.
We just watched the fourth one, and it was pretty intense. I was those movies where it's so high intensity, you're sweating the whole time. Mm-hmm. My feet were sweating.
Yeah, you have the sweaty feet.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
I'm like, okay, what's going to happen next? What's around that corner?
Right.
Yeah, good movie. So for my next one, I picked one of my favorite movies, definitely an underrated movie. I think it's on Tubi. Or maybe Amazon.
It was on Netflix, wasn't it?
No, I think it's on like Amazon or Tubi.
Okay.
But it's called The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Love this movie.
Which I watched this movie a couple of years ago with my dad. I love this movie. It's basically about a coroner and his son, and they kind of have to stay late at work because, a body rolls in, and I'm going to say it appears to be maybe like a 20, 30-year-old woman, and they're not really sure how she died, so the coroner asks his son, can you stay with me? I'm going to be here all night trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
And the son's like, yeah, whatever, I'll stay. And all these series of events start to unfold. Of course, it's storming outside. The power kind of goes out.
Yes. Yeah.
All these weird things start to happen. And as they're doing the autopsy and examining her, it just gets progressively weirder from there. Like, even, under her fingernails, the soil under her fingernails hadn't been seen in that area for years.
No, it wasn't. It was something.
It was peat, wasn't it peat?
Yeah, it was peat. Yeah, because she had peat under her nails.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's hasn't been peat in that area in 400 years.
And why was she buried somewhere? Your mind starts kind of racing.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the point where, sorry, spoiler alert for if you've never seen an autopsy, but they cut you open.
Mm-hmm.
And she's sliced open, and in her stomach, I think, they found a note with a old script in it.
Yeah.
And even when they have the flaps of her abdomen open, on the inside of her abdomen.
This was weird.
On the inside of her abdomen was scriptures and writing.
Yeah.
In a different language. It wasn't in English, it was in
Latin or something
I think
that.
It might have been Latin.
Yeah.
But written on the inside of her. So they're thinking at first maybe she was a sex trafficking victim. But then once they get to this part, they're like, that's way more than sex trafficking.
Yeah.
There was that one part where she had she swallowed something, it was a fish hook with a note attached, and they slowly pulled it out of her mouth, and that's when they were initially thinking maybe sex trafficking, and then, it gets way more in depth than that, and it's just all these weird things about her body that are just not, anatomically, physiologically possible. I believe she was still warm. The date of her death would have been hundreds of years prior.
Well, yeah, the thing was because it was weird because they started. It was started with that weird stuff, the stuff under the fingernails, and when they got into her the stuff that was in her stomach, or no, it was her lungs they were looking at, and it was either she smoked 3 packs a day, for every single day for her entire life, that why her lungs are so
bad, or she's burned alive,
or she's essentially had her lungs burned, she died
from
of
the inside out,
smoke inhalation, but her body has no burns on it.
Her body had no bruising, no burns. She's severe, she's super pale. Yeah. You can see everything. No.
Yeah, there's
no bruising, nothing. No cuts, no scrapes, nothing.
Yes, there's not. It's a perfect she died in her sleep. It looks like there's nothing that would indicate foul play or any kind of weird trauma death or anything. So that makes you start wondering. It's what the heck's going on? And it's and then I think it was when they found the scripture stuff, right? And they found there was Jimson weed and
there was all this weird, and even
these spices inside this sack inside her stomach or something.
I was gonna say even they found a cloth inside of her, and they put the cloth under the microscope, and it was some kind of clothing that we don't wear anymore. I don't know.
The material it was made out of.
So all these things start to unfold, and basically, doing some further research, they kind of find out that she was a witch, and she had been burned alive and then somehow got buried. But that's why her body was preserved so well, because she was a witch.
Right.
But they did all these things to her to torture her because it was during the Salem witch trials, essentially.
Yeah, that's what they come to find that out, right?
Yeah, they kind of come to the conclusion that she's a witch because then things start manifesting in real life. They're in the morgue and, the lights start to go out. They kind of start seeing these demons walking around. She kind of brings her presence and her power, all from laying on the autopsy table.
She doesn't move at all.
She doesn't blink, she doesn't move, she never comes back to life, but all these paranormal creatures start coming out. They start playing tricks, mind tricks on him. I believe the son accidentally stabs the dad because he thinks that he's one of the creatures walking around. All these mind tricks start to happen.
Yeah.
And it keeps flashing back to her, and she's just laying on the table like this.
Yeah.
And you feel bad. I feel terrible for the father and son because I'm they don't know.
They didn't do anything wrong.
But in her head, she was so probably killed for no reason really. She was probably just minding her own business, and they were like, "You're a witch."
Yeah, and it wasn't until like they found that out that like stuff like started happening. Like the whole time, it's just like you're watching like an autopsy done with like weird stuff, like these weird findings in the autopsy, and they're trying to like piece it all together. Like, what does this mean? And then it was like, oh, wait a minute, I think she's a witch. Because there was something written on, like, that scroll, too, and he, like, pulled out a book. Yeah, he had, like, he pulled out a book. I remember the dad, and he was like, wait a minute, this was, like, something that was said during the Salem witch trials or something like that.
Which, like, the math was not mathing. This girl looked like she was maybe 20, 30.
Yeah.
And this is taking place in present day, which this movie came out, I think, in, 2016, so it was taking place in present day, so there would just be no way in hell.
No way at all. Yeah, her body was, like, perfectly preserved.
I mean, in this movie, it's super interesting, because even, like, while they're doing the autopsy and you're finding all this stuff out, you're thinking to yourself, you're like, oh, this is interesting to watch. It's kind of creepy, whatever. Like, it's storming outside, and then it just, like, takes it up a notch.
Right.
And it's one of those movies that, like, I love because the heroes nobody lives in the end. Like, they try, they fight, and there's just no hope. And that's kind of why we watch horror movies, right? It's just...
Yeah, that's just what it is, I think like that's just why we watch them.
Good doesn't prevail,
Yeah, not all the time, I mean, especially in this case.
Yeah, sometimes you can struggle and you're doing all the right things, you're just doing your job, and you're unraveling the mystery, essentially, and you still die in the end, despite how hard you tried.
And it kind of was almost, like, not really nice, but kind of like ominous to see, like, because at the end they take the body from the morgue and bring her to another morgue, so it's like it's going to happen again. They're going to try to, like, who's this woman, and...
And it's sad because the son was supposed to leave to go with his girlfriend, and the dad's like, can you help me? I'm going to be stuck here late. And knowing what they know, the dad definitely would have never done that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I would highly recommend. It's definitely an underrated horror movie. If we were doing an underrated horror movie episode, I'd probably bring it up again. I definitely.
I think I think it's gained more popularity now.
It's cult following.
When it came out, though, I don't think anybody heard about it. Yeah. It wasn't like a theater released movie. I don't think it only came out like on streaming services.
It's pretty well done though. Like,
oh god, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, it's an actual actress laying there as the corpse.
Yeah, the whole time.
And the special effects are pretty well done.
Yeah, they did a really good job, especially with the autopsy, making it look real.
And I think at one point, she does move. I think at the very end when they all die, she like kind of smiles a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, just a little bit of light in that movie there. All right, so for my next one, I got it's 2013's Oculus. So this one's like kind of like a psychological supernatural. Because you're kind of like the whole time in the movie, it's like it deals with a mirror, a haunted mirror. So you think mirrors, like you ever hold a mirror to a mirror, and it's like this infinite tunnel of mirrors. We've all done that as kids. I mean, I do it now because I think it's cool looking, but...
Well, there's a lot of, like, folklore and, like, mythology, I guess, about mirrors.
Yeah, there is a lot.
They can be, like, portals to different universes.
Exactly.
Demons or entities can come through them.
Exactly. So it's, like, there's, like, a little bit of... There's always been kind of, like, a little freakiness with mirrors, especially, like, with that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, like, bad luck, too, like, don't break a mirror.
Yes.
Things like that.
So this movie was... directed by Mike Flanagan. It was actually based on a short film that he made called Oculus Chapter 3, Man with a Plan. So never seen it, never watched it, so maybe I've seen that.
Really he did Haunting Hill House.
Yes, he did. That is the guy. So basically, like, it's these two, it's this brother and sister. The sister, so something happens to the brother and sister back in like the early 2000s. Their parents were like brutally murdered, and they can't really remember. The brother just got released from like a mental institution. They don't really remember what exactly happened.
The brother got blamed for the murders.
Yeah, well, essentially he did, but it was like he was deemed like criminally insane, so he was in a psychiatric hospital, but. The sister seems to remember exactly what happened, and they kind of had like a plan to exact revenge, let's say. So the movie continues on, kind of flashing back between present day and when they were in their past at their parents' house, and their parents bought this mirror, and it was this beautiful, like, kind of not gothic. I guess it kind of was gothic, but like Victorian, like gold gilded mirror. And it was in the dad's office, and it's like jumping, so it jumps to that, and like so some weird stuff starts happening, like the dad starts behaving kind of weird. the daughter starts thinking there's like, he keeps seeing this woman in her dad's office with him. And, you know, she's like asking, like, who's the woman in your office? And even the wife's like, yeah, who's the woman in your office?
Yeah, well, the wife thinks he's cheating. But...
Yeah, but it's really this mirror's like making him and everybody else around him think that there's somebody there.
It basically plays all these like optical illusions on everybody in the house. Exactly.
So it continues on, kind of jumping into the present now. The brother gets released. Sister finds the mirror at this auction, and they bring it back to the parents' house that they lived in back in the early 2000s. And so they set the mirror up in the same office, except the sister's now, like, she's convinced it's the mirror. She kind of, like, realized that from day one. She was the older of the two of them, so she kind of realized it's the mirror. And sets up, like, all these cameras and stuff like that, trying to prove, like, this mirror is, like, possessed or haunted or whatever you want to call it. And there's even, like, a fail-safe she puts, like, on, like, this pendulum comes down and, like, will smash the mirror if it gets too crazy, trying to put the proof together, because she's trying to prove that her parents were victims of, like, supernatural death, not her brother killed them or whatever. I can't really remember what. Yeah, the brother, I think.
Yeah.
And, so eventually, like, they're going through the house, weird stuff starts happening. And it's kind of cool because, like, the stuff that starts happening is, like, very subtle. Like, she brings a dog in because, like, their dog started getting really sick back when they were kids living in the house with the mirror. So they bring a dog in, the dog starts, like, getting sick or something.
He freaks out.
Yeah, I think the mirror ends up, like, eating him.
Yeah, they basically set the dog up for death.
Yeah.
Even the brother's like, really? You brought a dog back?
Yeah. And then, like, the plants start wilting and stuff like that. And it's weird because it's, like, irradiates out from the mirror. So there's, like, a limit. So it stops, like, you know, at the edge of this door. But then it will eventually permeate throughout the whole house.
The longer it's there, the more powerful it gets.
Yeah, it's like it feeds off the energy of you and everything else, you know, around you.
Well, and the sister, she's smart. Like, when she sets this up, she sets up, like, a timer every 30 minutes. She remembers to eat because the mirror can mess with your reality of time.
Yeah, it completely distorts everything.
Yes, she sets up her fiance to call her every hour to make sure she's okay. Like, she has all these things in place to ideally outsmart the mirror, but the mirror really just messes with everything.
Your just whole perception on everything is twisted, and it's really good. That's like the whole psychological aspect, because like you're watching it and you're kind of like, wait a minute, so that didn't just happen that we just saw. That was just like some freak thing, because it'll like this crazy event, like she bit into like a light bulb, and then it's like you're like, oh my god, that's crazy, and then it's just like, no, they're still standing talking.
She thinks she's biting into an apple, and then for a second it turns into a light bulb. And
but that didn't even happen. No, like the whole eating apple thing, they're standing in the same room when they got there talking. Yes. It's like they did this whole like 20-minute scene, and it didn't really even happen. No. So it's like you're kind of like, what the hell is going on?
And then her boyfriend or her fiance comes in and she stabs him on accident because she thinks that it's her dad, like the ghost of her dad.
Yeah.
And she's like, and then on the phone, her fiance calls her while he's laying there dead. And it's like, which one's real? Is that real? Is him on the phone real?
Yeah, so it's like very hard. It's very psychological, but it's like it's all like ghosts too, because it's like this mirror's doing all this stuff. And I mean, is it like what kind of spirit? Is it a demon, or is it just like? Does it just cause severe hallucinations and like time dilation and stuff?
It's really good. I love Oculus. It's a really good movie.
You know, like I mean, is it something with the mirror? Because there's like high levels of mercury in mirror making. So is it like the mercury, like the level of mercury in this mirror, so up there that it causes like hallucinations just being near it? You know, and like time dilation and stuff.
Yeah,
it's a super good movie. Essentially, the brother ends up getting killed by the failsafe.
No, the sister gets killed.
I thought it was the brother.
No, the brother gets killed.
No, I thought it was the other way around.
No, the sister gets killed and then the brother gets arrested at the end again.
I thought it was the other way around. That sister, the brother got killed and the sister got arrested.
And it's like some sick sense of like full circle moment, because he's in the car again and he's crying, and it flashes back to him as a kid when he was in the car crying. Right. And when he was in the car crying as a kid, he's like, it's the mirror, and everybody's like, all right, psych facility.
Yeah.
And then he gets an adult and he's in the car crying again, and he's kind of like, it was the mirror, it wasn't me.
And at the end, because like this mirror, the sister did all this like studying too about the mirror, and it's like been basically the oldest date she could find the mirror dating till was like in the 1500s, and basically the mirror's killed every owner or killed every person where it's been at. Mm-hmm. So like at the end of the movie, like you see in the window, like when the brother's getting carted off, they're all waving. All these people that have been killed by the mirror, like the mom and dad are there, the sister's now there. There's like these people from like the 1700s there. They're all like waving at him, you know, essentially like, haha, we got you, you know.
Well, it works by like possessing people. So like, and their family specifically possesses the dad, and then the dad kind of like holds the mom hostage, and then it goes from there. And then like the previous owners, they all, I forgot what it was. I think they all drowned in a bathtub or something, but it like basically possessed the owners and had them drown themselves.
Yeah, it does some freaky stuff.
There's a lot. I mean, it's a very intense movie. You have to watch it a couple of times to be like, oh.
Yeah, you definitely got to watch it more than once to kind of get your head wrapped around it. At least I think. I mean, you know, but I'm not the brightest bulb, so.
Yes, you are. Don't downplay yourself.
So that's my. Yeah, it's a good movie though. I like it, you know. But you know, what was I saying? I'm sorry. So that's my number, whatever I said there. What do you got for your next one?
So for my next one, I would say it's probably a bigger cultural phenomenon than it is a movie, like the story itself. But I picked the movie Amityville Horror, which, if anybody doesn't know, I guess it's kind of an older case. But essentially back in 1974, the DeFeo family moved into this beautiful Long Island house, and the son, Ronnie DeFeo, killed 6 members of his family all while they slept, which is already kind of highly debated. Like, it's a very controversial true crime case.
Yeah, and they made a book deal about it too, didn't they? There was some like thing with the book deal.
So his defense was essentially, I was possessed by the house made me do it, I didn't do it on my own kind of thing. And then the Lutz family moves into the house after, and this is kind of what the movie's more based on, and they claim that they started having some paranormal experiences after this.
Right. And
Ed and Lorraine Warren came out, and this is where some of the controversy comes in because, like you said, they tried to make a book deal. I think they were part of making the movie. The theories are Ed and Lorraine Warren were kind of trying to push for the paranormal stuff to make it happen.
Sure.
But it's still a great movie because I think that paranormal stuff based on true crime is more realistic.
Sure.
Like, you have a house where, 6 people died? I mean, obviously, I would assume it would be haunted.
You'd imagine there'd be some sort of ghost there.
Especially in such a tragic way, and then you have the main guy, Ronnie, just saying that the house possessed him, and maybe he's lying, or, he wants to get off the case, or he wants to go to a mental facility instead of jail, but what if he's telling the truth, and what if the house is haunted?
Right, exactly.
So they made 2 versions of this movie. The first one, it is based on, the book deal came out in 1977. So the movie came out after that. I think the first one's better than the second one for Amityville. What
do you mean, because they did like a couple spin-offs?
No, I'm talking about like the original and the remake with Ryan Reynolds.
I like the original one better.
I like the original one better. All these weird things start happening. Things started to get moved. The husband, or the dad in this, kind of starts to get possessed again. So the movie kind of tries to verify the story that the house kind of possesses the man of the house.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
And it's kind of like The Shining. Like, he gets possessed and he tries to kill his family.
Right.
It's like I said, it's more of a phenomenon of maybe a true crime case or a story than it is a movie, but I think it's still pretty interesting because it brings into account the Warrens and everything.
Yeah, and even the movie itself though is really well done too.
Yeah, even if it wasn't a story, I think the movie would still be
and it was creepy too for the time and everything like that. I mean, like the Jody, the imaginary friend that the daughter's talking to, it's actually like I remember Margot Kidder, the mom who plays the mom in the movie, sees it in the window, and it's like the thing with the red eyes. It's like a pig face, and she's like, "Oh, that's the imaginary friend. No way."
She's like, "That's what you're playing with."
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, it starts off small, like a lot of possession movies. Things start to go missing. Like, I remember the brother was getting married at the house, and they had money, and the money went missing.
The money disappears. Yeah.
It was like under the couch, and now it's not. It goes missing, and then it just dramatically gets worse from there.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those horror movies you just have to see in your life. Like, I think everybody should watch it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just for the phenomenon of it.
And it's a classic too. It's definitely a cult classic movie. I mean, in my opinion, I think everybody should go see it.
And they reference it in, I don't remember which Conjuring it is. I think it might be the second one, the Enfield Poltergeist, but they reference it. And Lorraine Warren, she basically it shows her at the house, and she tries to put herself in Ronnie DeFeo's mind.
Oh, yeah,
and it shows her going to every bedroom with a shotgun and shooting all the family members. And they were basically all shot execution style with their face down and the pillows.
Yeah.
So it's a very weird case because it's like, wouldn't you have heard the shotgun?
Yeah, that was the big thing. Is like, how did nobody hear the shotgun blast? Were they like, did he drug him first? But there was no drugs found in like the autopsies, you know. So
I mean, how do you kill 6 people with their face down?
Yeah, I mean, a gun blast. I don't care what kind of caliber gun, you're going to hear a gunshot. You know?
They're all in bedrooms like next to each other. They would hear it, and some of them weren't sleeping in the same bed.
Yeah, like the husband and wife were in the same bed. It's like, you can't tell me like no one woke up. I mean, that's. You know, did they wake up, but he just got them in quick enough time before they could react to scream, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
Interesting, though.
Don't know. But yeah, definitely a good one to go watch. Is that all you got to say about that?
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah? Alright, this one's really not. I mean, it is a haunted house. I guess it is a haunted house movie, but
I think it is.
It's not like your typical haunted house. So it's 1959's A House on a Haunted Hill, directed by William Castle. He's a great director. He did the 13 Ghosts and then Cobb as well. It all came out kind of around the same time, in the like late 50s, early 60s. But it stars Vincent Price, my favorite, and Alicia Cook Jr. Essentially, I'm sure everybody has seen House on Haunted Hill, the original one, because it's an iconic horror movie. It's this millionaire played by Vincent Price invites 5 strangers to spend the night in a haunted house, essentially going to give them $10,000 each. And he's super eccentric, and his wife on the movie, played by Carol Omar, she's kind of like a gold digger, you know, right off the bat. You can kind of tell, like, she's in it for the money and everything like that. And essentially, so the movie goes on. They're touring the house. They're seeing where, like, all these murders have happened in this house because it's supposedly haunted. Alicia Cook Jr.'s character, Watson Pritchett, he is the caretaker for the place, so he knows all about it. He's like a drunkard. He's super disturbed by it because he's seen some stuff in that house. His brother and sister were killed in that house. So he's like super kind of like weary, like we shouldn't be here, you know, like warning them the entire time. And eventually they get locked in the house. They have until midnight to decide if they want to stay, but that is cut short because they close the doors at 11:30 that other caretakers do. And it's just like, it's not really a haunted house movie up until like the very end. You're kind of thinking it's all real and stuff like that, but then you find out one of the guests there and Vincent Price's wife are having an affair, and they fake her death to make it look like she's dead, and then he's going to kill Vincent Price, and because everyone thinks that Vincent killed his wife because he's kind of weird, and he's always kind of joking that he's going to kill her and stuff like that, and, you know, I mean, he plays the perfect part for somebody to kill, so... Yeah, essentially, it's kind of like a murder mystery movie, and then at the very end of the movie, that's when it's like, okay, yeah, there really are ghosts, because you can hear them, you hear, like, chains and, like, moaning and everything at the end of the movie, and watching Pritchett, Alicia Cook Jr.'s character's like, they're coming for us now. I could feel them, they're moving, they're coming for us, and he looks at the camera, and he's like, and you too, they're coming for you too, and then it cuts out. It's a classic, like, corny movie. It's a great film. I love it. I think I always watch this. It's just something to put on if you're just like in the mood for like a good ghost story kind of thing, or like a murder mystery type of thing. And there's great jump scares. The most iconic is obviously the woman in the basement where Nora Manning's banging on the wall. She's like, "Do you hear that?" And then she like stands up, the camera pans, and there's the creepy blind witch lady standing behind her, and she like rolls out, like floating on a skateboard out of her room. Oh my god, it's just so, and that'll give anybody nightmares right there. It was super, super, you know, for its time, terrifying, I think. That's all I gotta say about that one. Not really a ghost movie, but definitely a good mention.
Maybe you think it's a ghost movie when you're watching it.
Yeah, you do, you know, the title, House on Haunted Hill.
Okay, so for my next pick, I picked a personal favorite of mine, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. This was one of my favorite books. Besides all the Goosebumps books when I was younger, this was one of my favorite books. I remember going to the library and trying to find this book, and I would read like a different story every day.
Right.
And probably started my love for all those things spooky. But they turned this into a film adaptation a couple years ago, and it's based on a lot of the different stories in the books, which they did 3 of these books. There's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, More Scary Stories, and then I remember this one, More Tales to Chill Your Bones.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
But they were all from like the 80s to 90s, and the film adaptation is set in 1968. It's about a group of teenagers who discover a mysterious book, and it's based on this like young girl named Sarah Bellows, and she kind of cursed the town, and she makes all of her stories written in this book come true.
Yeah.
And they're all based on different stories from, scary stories to tell in the dark.
Yes.
And it's just, I love this movie just because I love these books when I was younger, so it's just a very nostalgic feeling.
Oh, I definitely agree.
But they all get a different monster, basically. Like, the one girl has the thing where, the spiders and her pimple, and she pops it.
Yeah.
The other guy has, like, is it the zombie's toe in his suit?
Oh, yeah. I can't find my toe or something.
Yeah, it's like a zombie, or say he can't find his toe, but it's all these different, like, paranormal monster creatures, and they're all going after these kids, and, like, every kid has their own monster that's coming for them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, I don't have a lot to say about this. It's just one of my favorites. It's nostalgic for me. I love it.
Sure.
I think it's great. I watch this all the time.
Yeah, we've since it came out, I think we watched it at least like twice a year. It's good. I mean, it's not really like scary, but it's like freaky.
I think it's meant to be more of a kids thing.
I think it is too. It's more geared toward like, maybe like not like preteens, not like, little kids, because it is kind of freaky, some of the stuff, and I mean, they all die in the movie, for the most part.
I just love it because I used to love these books. I literally remember the cover of the one with like the skull, the white one. With
he's got like the pipe, the corn cob pipe. Yeah.
I vividly remember that.
Yeah, he's like got like the blue and like the reddish nose. Yeah, I like those are good books, and that was a good movie too. I really liked it.
The film adaptation I really liked.
Yeah, definitely a good one. All right, let me see. For my last one here, I think I got a couple I want to do, but I think I'm just gonna do. Hang on here. I don't know which one to do. I guess I don't know.
Do your favorite.
I got a couple I was kind of bouncing back and forth with, but I don't know. There's a lot of good ones. Maybe I'll do two. So I'll do this. Okay, I'll do the Skeleton Key because this is a good one. This is definitely one of my favorites. And I saw this one, I was like, this is a cool idea for a movie.
My God,
Like, this is definitely one that has kind of never been done before, but came out in 2005. It was written by Ethan Kruger and directed by Lane Softly, and it's like kind of like this southern voodoo movie.
Very voodoo.
Very voodoo, like heavy voodoo related. So basically, just real quick, I'm sure a lot of people have seen this. It's this girl, Kate Hudson is who plays the girl. Her name's Caroline. And she's a hospice aide, and she basically gets hired at this plantation in Louisiana, helping this guy that had a stroke. And his wife's there, but she's obviously too old to take care of him, kind of thing like that. So they hire her. Basically, like, it's this creepy old plantation house, the big southern, plantation homes that you can picture. And there's a skeleton key that opens up every door in the house except for the attic, I think, is the only room it doesn't open up. So she starts working some weird stuff. She kind of thinks like that the husband's like trying to tell her something, like that he's like he needs help, like and
he can't speak because he had a stroke. So he can't speak or write very well.
Yeah, so she's like really concerned about it. She thinks that the wife has like done something to the husband to make him like this. He didn't have a stroke, she basically paralyzed him essentially, and so. Eventually, like, she kind of comes to that realization, like, there's something wrong here. I got to do something about it. She tries to, like, break the husband out of the house, and the wife's into, like, this voodoo stuff. Like, she's pouring salt around the house, like, these thresholds, like, making these potions and stuff like that. And as she's trying to get the husband out of the house, I forget what happens.
It's a dramatic scene. Like, it starts raining, and then the wife is basically like, I think she says like he needs his medicine or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh no. Something. She falls down the stairs. The wife does, and then like she puts a curse on Kate Hudson, and then like she gets her chased up into the attic. And then I don't really remember what the hell happens. I don't remember how because essentially what happens, you come to find out, is that the wife is possessed by these people. This girl Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here because it's kind of hard to explain. So the wife in the movie is possessed by this woman that used to live there. She was a slave at this house back when it was a plantation, and this slave possessed these people from that basically ever since that house became up for sale, the slave has continuously possessed the people that have lived in this house. So essentially from the 1800s up until present day, every person that lived in that house has been possessed by this person. So now they got nobody next in line to sell the house to, so this Kate Hudson character, she's the one that gets possessed next, and they basically possessed her, and the lawyer that was kind of helping her...
buy the house almost?
Yeah, not buy the house, but she was, there was a lawyer involved for some reason, I don't know, but he's possessed by the slave, the husband slave. And so basically, it's kind of hard to describe, but you just got to watch the movie.
Once you watch it, your jaw will drop.
Yeah, you'll understand it a lot better if you just watch it, because it's kind of hard to explain. But essentially, it's so they're getting possessed by these people that were living in this house hundreds of years ago, and they have been doing this ever since they died. Essentially, it was just moving from one body to another to stay alive
and stay in a young body too. They try to get a younger body. The one guy had a stroke, so they're like, okay, we need someone new.
Yes, exactly. And they were getting to they're getting older. The husband and wife that are currently possessed. Yes. So it's we got to get these two younger people. And they're in their 30s, so they'll get another 40, 50 years out of them if they're lucky. And then they'll have to do it again.
Very, very good movie. I'm surprised Kate Hudson took that role.
It's very, very good. And it's kind of psychological, too, because you're kind of what's going on? I don't get it. What's up with all the voodoo and stuff like that? And she even, Kate Hudson goes to these voodoo shops to, try to understand all this voodoo and stuff.
Try to get some protection.
Yeah, because she thinks there's something wrong, with what's going on there and everything.
And she's right.
So, yeah, that was, that's the Skeleton Key in a nutshell.
All right, so for my last one, I just want to touch on probably one of the most famous paranormal movies there is. I picked The Blair Witch Project.
There you go.
Which came out in 1999. This was the found footage movie. This started the whole found footage craze. And essentially, 3 teenagers go into the forest in search of the legend of the Blair Witch, this folklore legend about a Blair Witch.
Yes.
And they use their cameras, found footage to go in and try to find this legend and kind of make their own documentary. And as this progresses on, they just, all these eerie things start happening. There's things hanging in the trees. They hear noises at night. One of the crew members disappears, and it kind of escalates from there. A little bit of a slow burn. The ending's the best part. But I would say my favorite part about this movie is how realistic people thought it was.
Oh, yeah. Everybody thought it was
Because
so
this
real.
was the first found footage. People actually thought that this actually happened. These were real people that went missing and that this Blair Witch was real.
Yeah.
That she was coming for people.
Yeah.
And what I found researching this, which this is so crazy, people were actually sending letters to the parents of these actors saying, I'm so sorry that you're lost. Or I hope they come home soon. And I guess the way they filmed this was there was no script, no plot. They just told the actors, exist out in the forest. And then the actors, the directors were just tormenting them, causing sounds, moving things. So eventually they started to think stuff was real.
Sure.
Because they're like, who's doing this? Are
they
you
act
in on
into
this?
it. Yeah, they act into it,
And, people watching it are... At the ending, you're like, okay, was that real? Are these people actually missing?
I know. At the time, I could imagine it was pretty, know.
The marketing campaign for this movie is probably the biggest since The Exorcist.
Oh, yeah.
The Exorcist, people were fainting, having miscarriages in theaters. It was a huge thing.
Right.
But for people actually to think that this happened, watching it is so crazy to me. But
it looks very real. It's
it does.
There's no intro. There's no credits or anything that roll.
Very ominous movie.
Yes.
It's very slow. Things just start to gradually move.
Right.
You think that there is this witch or this spirit haunting this group of people because they're wandering in the woods trying to find her.
Right.
And it's just this local legend that they're trying to find and uncover, and along the way, everybody thinks they go missing in real life, and I love this movie. I think that's great.
I know, it is. I've always liked that movie, too. Yeah. Again, it was a slow burn. You're kind of there's nothing really happening.
And the budget, the budget must have been $100. And
yeah,
they did
I know,
seriously.
Crazy. I know, it's one of the biggest films of all time.
Of all time, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a good pick there, Michaela.
I'm glad we did this episode, though, because
Well, I think we got to do a part 2 because I got some.
Yeah.
We're just running out of time here and battery on your phone. I keep seeing
Yeah.
this popping up.
I was gonna say though, I found so many movies I feel like I want to rewatch now.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, we should definitely do a part 2 of this sometime.
Yeah.
There's so many good ones that I would like to cover.
If you guys are interested in part 2, let us know. But until then, we'll sign off and stay spooky.
Stay spooky, guys.
Oh, I can't reach my phone. Oh, I can't reach my phone.